Hello guys, so welcome to the channel. So today we are going to be seeing actually a good setup that I actually did catch up here, and this is an example of an A plus setup that you should watch out for per se. So I'm just going to move to the higher time frame so we get to see how I managed to actually catch this particular trade. And it's simple, it's all about the same thing we have been talking about for quite a while now. So if you actually move let's say to the daily time frame, you can see actually that we actually had this trajectory here where we had a break of structure to the upside, and once we had this break of structure to the upside, definitely we know that we can these are the possible origins where the market can actually be attracted to. Okay, normally, as I always say, the market can react from this point here. It could equally react maybe from this point here, this origin, or it could react from this other origin here. So one of the ways I actually always say you can know that is if the market gets there based on the change of character that you get, then you can try to get your entry there. But as at that, we had this corrective pullback after this particular break of structure to the upside. So I was just looking out for sales here. So I'll show you guys how I actually got this at this particular point. So if you step down, let's say to the 4-hour time frame, you will see that once we had these particular structures that we had here, we equally did have a break of structure at this point. We had one here, there was a break of structure to the upside, as you can see there, and he actually gave it's what actually prompted us to have this particular move based off that pullback that we had, and then we pushed to the upside. Correct. Now, following the next break of structure that we had, we did have another break of structure to the upside, as we can see here. And once we had this break of structure to the upside, you can see clearly that it actually formed this high. This was the low that it formed specifically. Then here is where the change of character actually happened, right? So once we had this change of character, you can see this sharp pullback that we did have here. We went to the downside. So since then, definitely this is a change of character indicating that markets are about to start going down. Let me show you guys how to, let me take that out. So here, for instance, here like this is where the change of character happened as such. And once we had that change of character, we then had a push to the upside. Definitely the market was reacting from this particular liquidity point here. It just tapped in and went to the downside, right? These are the trades you should have been entering. So now we understand that we now have a break of structure to the downside. This is an internal structure, understanding that the market is going to be pulling down to actually get to this point of origin here. So while the market is still at this zone, we can take advantage of that to get sales to the downside, right? So following what we had here, we equally had a break of structure. Now this break of structure then led to this pullback. We had a pullback here. Let's see if it would have been possible for us to take a trade at this particular point here. So this was for the previous trade that we should have taken, but it didn't really bring forth any kind of confirmation for us to enter that particular trade. So I'm just going to take this one off at this point here. So following the next structure that we have, we equally had this particular area here, and you can see clearly that there's a lot of fair value gap available there. There's a lot of imbalance that the market that was actually so attractive for the market to get back to this particular point. So it came there, but that's not what I want you to focus on. I want you to focus on how would you have actually entered the position. You can see that while we actually had this retracement to this point of origin, you can see that this was the last break of structure here to the upside, following this internal structure, and here was this was the last break of structure to the upside here. I'm just going to put it like that. And also here was the area where the origin was violated, right? This is where a change of character happened. So this is what now makes you understand that we're about to shift and start going bearish, okay? So we then had this particular change here of character here. That means when I say change of character, that means we're just saying that the trend is about to shift. That's a good indication. So we had this push. Upon this pullback here, this is where your entry should have been, okay? Even if you entered on this wick here to the downside like this, once you saw this candle, once you had this break and you saw this candle push back to the top like this, it's fine. But normally this came to clear liquidity at the top here. If you entered at this particular zone here, let me clear that. We're going for a sell. If you enter at this particular zone here, TP stop loss just slightly above the other block point of origin, and you actually just targeted mechanically 1:3, you're good to go, right? That's how you would have really gotten something clear out of this particular market here. So now going forward, if we are to fast forward what actually took place here, we had these particular structures that formed still on that particular bearish push. So we then had another break of structure here to the downside, right? And I was really focused on this liquidity point of interest here. And we can see that this is what actually happened. I was waiting for the markets to get to the, I was actually reluctant because normally when I step down to the like the 2 hour time frame, this particular area was what was once we had this break and the market came to this zone, I knew all of this was some liquidity that was just forming around here, because I know whenever I have a break of structure, there's always going to be some liquidity formation that's going to pile up, or maybe some inducements that will be available, right? So don't just rush into the trade. Now the next thing that I had to wait for was, at what point is this market going to react from? Initially I was thinking it's going to react from this particular zone here. That's why waiting for the markets to get to our point of origin. And I was thinking like that because there was a lot of imbalance available here, right? So this other block here was what was really attractive to me to watch out for. But what actually shifted was, and if you look around this particular area here, you find out that there's actually no imbalance available there, but actually this is actually like a supply zone. It's just a supply zone, why this is actually an imbalance area. Okay, so I was expecting to get some confirmation around here, but since there was no confirmation, that means this meant for me that this is not going to be a proper place to actually take the position. That's why sometimes rather than just taking an instant trade, it's always good to actually wait for the confirmation before you take the trade. So this was the next area. I knew that, okay, if you actually clear this side to the top, then I'm going to reverse the way I'm thinking. But once we got to this particular area here, and what I had to wait for was if we had stepped down again closer. If you look closely here, the same thing happens again. This was actually the last break of structure to the downside, to the upside, as we can see here, following that internal structure. This was that last break of structure to the upside there. I can just name it like a change or what. This was the last break of structure to the upside there. Clearly, if you can see, this is where the change of character took place to the downside. Patience in this game, guys. Patience is the key in this particular game. And this is where the change happened. We had this change of character here. And once you get this push pull back here like this is the zone, right? The moment you go to this imbalance here, I took the trade, placing stop loss just slightly above your point of origin. That's this other block, this demand zone, this supply zone area, then mechanically targeting 1:3. So that's how we got the move, I think, from the previous week. And this week it actually did follow through. So this is what you should be waiting for actually before you get to take your own positions, right? Patience is one of the key things. I know sometimes it's quite frustrating at times when you try to wait for this particular setup to get to you and it doesn't get. Sometimes it breaks through from here and boom, it just keeps going down. But sometimes to actually minimize the amount of losing trades that you get, I actually recommend that actually go for the confirmatory entry. So with that being said, I look forward to seeing you guys in the next video, and don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Thank you.